This is why we don't have more women in here. It was very isolating, alienating for women. So we really wanted to change that and create a firm of collaboration, mentoring, sharing, inspiration.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Jessica Weaver. Jessica is a wealth advisor who focuses her work on women. Jess found herself on a mission to help more women gain control, clarity, and confidence over their finances and the next chapter of their life. Her focus is on women nearing retirement or in retirement to help guide them through their money concerns, questions, and emotions. Most of the women Jess works with have done a good job saving money, but are missing the link to creating retirement income from it. Through her online presence, public speaking, blog, her new book, and her strong retirement club, as well as her new podcast, she is able to touch more lives than she ever thought possible and help them elevate their life to the next level. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in today.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited to have you on because, you know, you are not like a lot of financial planners, and there's a lot of different reasons. But we're gonna dive into, you know, some of the things that people really don't talk about too much about money, or talk about when they're talking about money. I think, you know, we talk about the mechanics, right? Like the how to, like where to invest, how to invest, IRAs, self-directed IRAs, real estate, stocks, bonds, but I think we forget to go back and talk about, you know, some of the more important things that we're going to dive into today. But before we do, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background, Jessica, and then dive into, you know, some of those topics as well as your books.
Sure, Chris. So it's hard to think when it all started because my father has been an advisor for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And I remember being
Family
on
business.
the family room carpet stuffing envelopes for him back in the day when you would do out these cold mailers and then follow up with cold calls afterwards. And I would make a few bucks here and there with it. And then fast forward a few more years, I remember at one point I was probably early teens, 12, 13 maybe. And I said to him, I never want anything to do with the stock market, because even at that early age, I could see how money can change people's moods, their emotions. And like you said in the beginning, but we don't talk about it. So there's that big faux pas about talking about money and how it's affecting you. And let's be honest, money impacts every aspect of our life.
Absolutely.
And there's that ripple effect. If it is affecting your spouse, affecting you, the kids are perceiving it. There's a tension in the air.
Yeah.
But then in college, I started to see, especially financial planning advising, in a different light as being more of a coach. And I grew up playing sports. I played basketball through college, love sports. I love having a coach. I loved having a team around me to support. You have the fans, right? It really is, it brings so many people together. And that's what I wanted for career. So I joined my father's firm in 2010. And right away, you said, I'm not your typical advisor. My blog is called Not Your Father's Advisor. Right away, I liked it, but I couldn't figure out how to make it me and bring myself into it and follow more of my interests, especially when it comes to money and really honing in on women. Yeah. So within a few years, I started having events just for women to bring them together, to make it more relatable, more engaging, fun even. Can we have fun with money? I started a blog, started reading these books from Strong Women, Stronger Assets, which I wrote in 2017, right when I was also pregnant with my first daughter. And then 2019, yes, I wrote my second book, Time to Refine. I had my son that year too. And then 2 years ago, I wrote Confessions of a Queen. And that book, I felt, just came to me from God within a week.
Wow.
It was during the busiest time of my careers. And this happens to you, Chris. Do you ever get those aha moments when you have this huge inspiration or this energy, this push to do something, but most of the time we're like, well, that doesn't fit in my to-do list. There's no way I can manage to get this done. I had my second kid. It was a pandemic. And my father's firm decided, we're going to change broker dealers. And that's a big project.
Yeah.
Tackle, right? $300 million firm, moving everything over. And right during that time, God's like, no, 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 you're going to write this book. And for the first time, I'm so grateful I did that. But for the first time, I took that pause and I would be doing voice memos right on my phone on the way home, transcribe it later, pull over and type into my Google Doc app on my phone. And by Friday of the week, I told my husband, I have 8 chapters written for this.
Wow.
And Christy goes, well, I hope you're not pregnant too, because
Yeah, I was going to ask. I was
too
like, is there
much.
something else? Yeah.
He's like, let's cut right to the chase. You're not right because we cannot handle another kid. No kid this time, just the book. But then the book really changed everything in my life. It was
Yeah.
like the book was playing out in real time because I left my father's firm, started our very own all-female financial firm, the Women's Wealth Boutique. We're the fastest growing women-owned firm in the United States. We
Wow.
just launched our podcast, Women Behind the Millions,
Awesome.
yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a speaker summit coming up, a
Yeah.
magazine. So it's amazing when you do listen to those aha moments
Yeah.
and go with that inspiration, how it can just change life.
No, I love it. And it's one of those things in life. We like to think that life is linear, right? And it just kind of, it goes steadily up, or sometimes
Mhm.
unfortunately it goes steadily down, but it doesn't. It moves in these big waves. And I was
Yes.
one of the reasons I have this picture behind me, it's a
It's a
picture of
beautiful
the
picture.
yeah,
Oh,
so
I love
that's
it.
one of my favorite spots in the Grand Canyon. And we walked into a gallery in Colorado. I was visiting my uncle with my family a few years back, and the year before I'd been down the Grand Canyon, and I have this picture in the background of my phone, and that picture is actually, if I can pull it up here, you might be able to actually see it. You can kind of see if you're watching on
Yes.
YouTube. So that is
Yes.
down on the river,
It's
and we
beautiful.
were right down there, kind of where your little reflection of your head is there, Jessica.
I'm there.
Um, and this picture was hanging on the wall by this artist who's a photographer. And one of the reasons I love it is because the Grand Canyon, it makes you realize
Mm.
how insignificant you are in a lot of ways. Both by the age of the rocks, the formations, but also the power that lies inside of that canyon. And some of it is the power that's been there. And they talk about how this old story about how the canyon was just worn away by water over millions or billions of years. Is it the case? It came in these massive floods that would come, these cataclysmic events that would occur. And again, we don't necessarily know what occurred exactly, but I find that life is much like that as well, where really what is going on is that we have these moments in our life, and it's very important that we take advantage of them. So I agree with what you said. Sorry with my little aside there.
No, that's
But I
beautiful.
think I think if we understand that in life, we're more willing to accept those moments of intense effort, of intense inspiration, as you did.
Yes,
Yeah.
very true. Taking advantage of it. I always, when I talk to people who are they're older, right, in their
Yeah.
80s and 90s and looking back,
Yeah.
it's like, what are their regrets? And it's always what they didn't do,
Yeah.
what they didn't go after.
Yeah.
And I feel it does seem to be changing. I feel a lot of energy and positivity and people really wanting to step up, stop being in the shadows behind the scenes. I'm seeing
Yeah.
that with our advisors who are joining us. I mean, they're all leaving a team, their support system, everything that they've known.
Yeah.
But what they're also are leaving are being, unheard, underpaid, undervalued, and really
Yeah.
wanting to take that risk. And I think that's what it comes down to, is just getting really comfortable with taking risks.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about how your firm, obviously it's you said it's all women.
Yes.
And I'd love to hear, some of the things, because it's kind of taboo today to talk about, like, oh, men and women are different, right? Like we like to pretend like, oh, there's,
Mhm.
everybody is the same, but there are differences. There's cultural differences, there are biological differences. I'd love to hear some of the things that you've seen working with your clients, Jessica, and how your firm helps to address those issues and really support um, whether it's women or couples, women that are in a relationship, through your
Yes.
practice.
Yes. So we do work with men and women as our
Yeah.
clients, couples, families, multi-generational
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
businesses. We do work with men. We wanted to create a firm because only 18% of advisors are women. And that
I'm
number has
sorry
been
that say that one more time. 18%.
18% of
Wow.
advisors
So
are
less than
women.
1 in 5. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that number hasn't changed in 20 years.
Really?
In 20 years,
Wow.
which it makes sense because when I
Yeah.
started out, over 13 years ago, I quickly reached out to the successful female advisors. I was part of an all male financial firm.
Yeah.
And they would all say, I don't have time to talk to you. And it broke my heart. It was really frustrated. And I don't know if they thought me as a potential threat or I just saw them. This is why we don't have more women in here. It was very
Yeah.
isolating, alienating for women. So we really wanted to change that and create a firm of collaboration, mentoring, sharing, inspiration. Because, to me, we have some of the top leading advisors at our firm, and we're finding that next generation of leading advisors. We are so much stronger together. We can create so much better plans together, innovative ways to handle money and to work with money. But the underlying, I strongly feel that unites and draws the right women to our firm are the women who, yes, they usually have a spiritual component to them, believe in a higher power, whether that's God, the universe, but they understand there's a larger force at play.
Yeah.
There's that energy behind money and how they show up consistently for their clients. But we all dive into the behavioral side of finances. There's a reason people are always in debt. And it's not because they're a failure. It's not because of they're not smart enough. It's because of an old money wound or issue or baggage or something they were taught at a very early age about money. Maybe don't feel worthy of money. They're scared to receive any more money. Money doesn't feel safe to them. Money brings a lot of anger because they saw their parents fighting over money. So we want to dig into the root cause of why you don't have the wealth that you're after. And usually we're not even getting near the surface of how much wealth we all deserve. We all deserve all wealth in the world. There's a huge worthiness issue at play here. And that's what we want to fix for people. And I've seen, even when people have millions of dollars, they still have the same concerns or worries. And usually, Chris, they get even worse. We always think if I just get
Money's
to
a
that $1 million
magnifier.
mark, I'll be fine. I won't stress over money anymore. And it's the opposite. It almost gets worse. To me, it gets worse.
I remember a Ted Turner interview, and I forget, it was like Barbara Walters. It was somebody, big name that was interviewing him. And she said, isn't it enough? Like, you got a couple $1 billion, isn't it enough? And he said, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. And you could just tell, like, it didn't matter that he had, $1 billion. I think that's so important. I see money as a magnifier, right? It can make you better. If you're a good person, it can make you worse if you have some issues that you haven't dealt with, and do those things. And I was just listening to a podcast this morning, not too long before we started this, and it brought up a statistic. It said if you make $34,000 or more a year, you're in the top 1% of the world, the top 1% of the world. And I think we forget that in America, and people take advantage of others' feelings about money. And unfortunately, we don't have these conversations about how abundant the world is and how it's not a zero-sum game. You said you talk about these behavioral issues. It seems like everybody should start. We've actually had a couple financial advisors over the years on the podcast, and the majority of them that we have won't actually mention that exact thing that you talked about, Jessica, how we have to understand, the root causes of how we view money. And I will say that, even, and you kind of touched on this, as you go up, along the spectrum, wherever you are in your world, we have to keep revisiting this, is what I found. You have to say, well, wait a minute. I've hit this point. Now I'm capable of, whether it's giving more, seeking a higher purpose, sharing those things. What are some things that you've seen, without naming, necessarily names of your clients, that you've seen kind of at different levels, and maybe, how some of those clients have been able to punch through those kind of barriers, to those mental barriers?
You're right, Krista. It is a barrier. It's that upper barrier that blocks us. And we see it all the time. Just looking at your salaries, right? Your income.
Yeah. Right.
Usually we'll have these spikes and then we plateau. And it's because we've hit a new spot where we're comfortable.
Right.
And then what's it going to take for you to, is what it is stepping into the unknown to hit that next level. This is what we trained our advisors and our clients, is how can you step into that unknown, stretch yourself every single day so that you don't hit those plateaus and get too comfortable. And when we get too comfortable, we feel we're settling, and it's
Yeah.
not a comfortable
Yeah.
feeling. It's just as familiar. It's
Right.
I've noticed just examples of a widow, right? Her husband
Mhm.
did all the finances his entire life, saved a few $1 million for them, and she was living very, very frugally, we'll say,
Yeah.
barely spending any of the money. And when I met with her, just she couldn't understand there were at three different custodians, right? Fidelity, Schwab, Ameriprise, all over the place. No idea how she's getting checks in left and right because her biggest fear was doing right by the money to her husband. It's
Uh,
like, my
yeah.
husband did such a good job saving up for us. It was too much pressure for her. She's like, I don't want to blow it. I don't want to fail him. What
Yeah.
do I do with this money? And then taking the steps to organize it, get her educated, get a grasp on it, and give her kind of this plan so she lane to drive in so she knows how much
Yeah.
she can spend, how much she can gift to her children, because there's more money than she needed to live on. How do
Yeah.
we best protect that money for, let's say, long-term care needs down the road? And similar thing with the woman we're working with who's going through a divorce. Very similar situation. Now she's handed all this money. Her husband always did the money for her. And she goes, terrified she's going to overspend the money, outlive the
Yeah.
money. What do I do with this money? She has a special needs. So
Yeah.
then how do we best protect her son as well as protecting her retirement? So it's a lot when you're stepping to that new sum of money. And that's what happens when we hit that
Yeah.
next zone of wealth, that next level
Yeah.
is understanding the mechanics of it, the education behind it, but also feeling worthy of it and trusting of the money.
Yeah. No, it's so good. One of my favorite Ramit Sethi podcasts, and he wrote, and I reference him in my book and also in our course. He talks about he talks a lot about couples now. It's interesting, it's kind of like comedians. You listen to a comedian and they get married, they have kids, and their
Yes.
material starts to change. And
So true.
I remember Ramit when he wrote his first book, and I read it, and you can kind of see this, young single guy who's kind of talking about millennial money issues, and now he talks a lot about couple issues based a lot on his experiences. And one of the things he talks about, Jessica, is how once people start to have more money, they're in this groove. And I see this with some of my family members that are in retirement now. They're so used to saving, right? So used to
Mhm.
saving.
Yes.
Now they have this, they don't know how to switch gears, they don't know how to change, and
It's
it's
the big mindset
yeah,
shifts when you
yeah,
step
and
into like retirement, right? You're
yeah,
saving your entire career and
yeah,
now I have to spend the money.
yeah,
Now what I have to do?
yeah.
It's
And
a
he,
huge fear.
real quick, and I'll turn this back over to you. Ramit said during this interview, he said, "Look, I want you to, if you're listening, take, and I think he said like at least $100, but basically an amount that was uncomfortable for you, and say, hey, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to spend it guilt free on something, and." I'll never forget, because I bought tickets to the World Series for my two sons and I. And,
Oh,
it was an amount of money that I kind of remember about how much it was, but you don't even remember, because the experience was so amazing with that.
mhm.
And, you start to do that and have those experiences. And I've had multiple, experiences since then in the past, year and a half. And it's such a blessing when you're able to receive that abundance and turn that money into something that actually is something
Mhm.
tangible.
Exactly. Yeah. Taking a trip with your family, that's going to re-energize you
Yeah.
to get back to work instead of
Yeah.
reaching work.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do a 1 year bucket in our plans, and it's
Oh, yeah.
exactly that. We're going to save, and you have to spend that money that year. It's
Oh,
balancing the saving for tomorrow and
yeah.
spending today and being able to spend it, as you said, guilt free because you're
Yeah.
saving plenty. You're
Yeah.
saving plenty
Yeah.
for the future. So
Right.
I love that, having
Yeah.
it. My grandmother always told a story of somebody she knew always would look at this painting and say, I want to be buried with this painting. So when the woman passed away, they're trying to fit the painting into the coffin, but it didn't fit. So they
Hmm.
take the painting out of the frame. They found $100,000 of cash. And you think about, well, what are you doing with that money with it
Right.
just rotting away in a coffin
Yeah.
versus enjoying that money with your family
Yeah.
and giving
Absolutely.
that money
Yeah.
out? And my parents always lived by that after hearing that story. We
Yeah.
want to see you enjoy the money. We don't want you to just inherit it and we don't know what you do with it or see it.
Yeah.
We want to be able to enjoy these trips, things with the grandkids together while we're still here.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I want to talk a little bit more about your latest book here, Confessions of a Money Queen. And you said you felt like it was almost like a download that came
Yes.
spiritually to you. Um, Before we talk about the book, talk a little bit about how important faith has been in your journey with money and the growth of your practice.
Oh man, faith has been everything for me. Whenever I'm stressed, overwhelmed, and that's what happens when you're hitting those next levels of income and wealth.
Yeah.
You're stepping out of your comfort zone. So the
Yeah.
me piece is you're going to feel stress. You're going to feel scared because you don't know what to
Yeah.
expect. And that's exactly the grounding force to me that God has, whether it's God, the universe, whoever that higher power is,
Yeah.
that you, what I think, who you talk to, who you pray to, who you thank, and even how much we're supposed to live in a very playful zone. We're not supposed
Yeah.
to be stressed our entire lives. It's not
Yeah.
healthy for us. That's why we have all these illnesses and diseases and sicknesses.
Absolutely.
If
Yeah.
we lock down on our stress so much, it's going to act out in a physical way. For me, it's I usually get neck and back spasms.
Mm.
Other people, their backs will go out or they'll break out or they'll get sick a lot.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So the more that I started, I call it a daily money practice. I talk about this in Confessions of a Money Queen. The more I just sat with God for an hour every morning, I drop my kids off at school. It's a little hectic and crazy. They're toddlers, get to work, and I can then meditate, pray, do my
Yeah.
journal work. I'm able to take the stress away and just give my
Yeah.
body some time to heal, to receive, to re energize for the day.
Yeah.
And that's when all the inspiration comes. That's when the creative flow comes back to me. When we're in
Absolutely.
stress zone, we don't
Yeah.
see that. We have
Yeah.
blinders on, right? We're only
Yeah.
seeing there's one option. This is what I have to do. We're usually are very reactive. We're what you call fear-based decision making
Yeah.
zone. And
Yeah.
to me, you
It's
never
almost
get what,
reptilian. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You never get what you want when you're making decisions out of fear.
Yeah.
So instead, if you can take those little moments in the day to sit with God, to meditate, to go for a walk outside, right? Nature is a huge component of it,
Yeah.
to feel that abundance again. It's going to open up your eyes to new opportunities or opportunities that have always been there, right, Chris? We just
Yeah.
haven't been able to see them yet
Yeah.
because we've
Exactly.
been so stuck. So
Yeah.
faith has been huge shifts for me. It's helped me through postpartum depression with both of my kids and
Mm.
pregnancies. It's helped me do this huge switch. I don't know. I don't think I would be here. And
Yeah.
opening up the Women's Wealth Boutique, having Confessions of a Money Queen, it wasn't for God. I really
Yeah.
don't. So,
Well, and I think, whether, I meditate every morning, whether you're comfortable meditating, whether you're comfortable praying, whether you're comfortable, as you mentioned, journaling, or,
mhm.
which is, it can be a form of visualization, right? I
Yeah.
think it's all very similar in the fact that you just mentioned, Jessica, you're, instead of like closing down and focusing your mind, it's kind of the opposite. When we're working, when we're focused, we're kind of locked down versus being open and receptive, to new things that are coming in. Um, I I was at a real estate meeting. It was about 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and yeah, I read The Secret, and I've had
Yes.
a bunch of moments in my life. My friends call me. They said, "Oh, Lucky Larson," because I've won a bunch of different things. Actually, I got the pass. I won the lottery to the pass to go on the Grand Canyon for that trip. But
Amazing.
I walked up to this booth. I don't like to gamble. I don't like to do any of this stuff. But I walked by this booth, and they had this block of silver, like a kilogram block of silver, sitting there in the booth. And I said, "What's this for?" And she said, "Oh, we're doing a giveaway. Like if you put your
Mm.
name and info on here and subscribe to whatever it was, or then you can enter the drawing." And she goes, "You can get $1,000. You can get the silver." Well, the silver was worth more. And I looked
Mhm.
at her. I said, "Well, when I win, I want the silver." And my friend was with me, and he laughed and she laughed. And I said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, I'm serious. I said, "Just remember, when I come up on stage, I want the silver." And she laughed, and I wrote my name down. So a couple hours later, they do the drawing, and she pulls my name out. We're talking like 1,000 people in the audience. This wasn't like, a small audience, and a lot of people had
Mhm.
entered. because it was like this no strings attached. And I thought, geez, like why can I not think bigger than, just $1,000 or,
And
this block of
okay.
silver?
Yeah.
If I can do this, multiple times with these things, what else are our minds capable of? And I know people are probably
Mhm.
listening saying, you're silly, Chris, like that doesn't, but there's, the secret is about, you open your mind to it. My wife gave me,
Mhm.
a book, and the Alchemist. I don't know if you've read that.
Mhm.
And there's a great line in The Alchemist that talks about, if you believe it with your heart, your heart and your mind and every piece of you, the universe will conspire to give you that which you wish for. So again, whether it's praying to God or it's meditating or believing in it, our minds are capable of so much.
They are. We're not even tapping into it. What is cool, I love the spiritual side
Yeah,
of money, of abundance, and
yeah,
that's all meditation does, right?
yeah,
The journal work, it's shifting you from
yeah,
scarcity to abundance.
yeah,
And now there's the scientific proof behind it that it is curing people. It is
yeah,
preventing diseases and
yeah,
conditions. So
yeah.
it's work. So why don't we just spend a little bit more time in gratitude and
Love it.
thinking?
Yeah,
And you're right. We're only tapping into it. It's very
yeah. It's
powerful.
yeah.
And it,
Yeah, Wim Hof just I don't know if you saw, he got challenged because he was able to control his immune system. Wim Hof does a breathing technique for those that may not be familiar.
yes.
And the scientist said, "Well, that's impossible. You're just unique." And a lot of you that are listening have heard that. Oh, you're lucky. Not everybody can do what you do, this or that. And he said, "That's not true." He goes, "Bring me, I
Mhm.
forget, it was like 10 random people." He goes, and he was able to teach them within a very short period of time, like days, to be able to literally control the response of their immune system, whether it's to like a bee sting or whether it was to a virus. And the scientists were shocked. They said this is physically impossible to do, but he's shown that you can actually do that with the power of your mind. So, all right, we got to get to your book before we wrap up today. I love the cover. I was telling you that before the how much I love your graphics here, before
Thank
the
you.
show. What else are readers gonna learn when they read Confessions of a Money Queen?
Well, going off of what we were just talking about, so Money Queen, it's 10 money moves to claim your power and prosperity, right? To start to feel worthy again. It
Awesome.
spurs money miracles. Similar to your story, we've had women who have read the book and done the course that goes along with it and never did lottery tickets before in their life. But for some reason, they're driving
Yeah.
by a store, they pulled over to buy a lottery ticket, and they won. That happened twice to a person who never did lottery tickets before. Um,
Maybe I should start playing the
but
lottery
all
more.
it's doing is, yeah, you got it, Chris. It's doing is reprogramming your mind,
Yeah.
right? The neurological pathways, and then it's aligning, right, your mind, your heart, and your money. And when those three things in alignment, it's amazing what can happen
Unstoppable.
with it. So we go through the spiritual side, and that opens up this creative flow, these ideas that we've kind of been, that would be a cool idea, but it's not going to happen, right? Or it'll be too tough to make that happen. It unlocks these much larger ideas. I call it playing the larger game, right? There's a
Yes.
larger game at
Awesome.
play. Most of us remain small, or we don't want to climb that mountain. We're still living in this box,
Yeah.
confined in
Yeah.
scarcity mode. But how do you play that larger game? What are those bigger pieces at play here? How can you see these doors that are being shut for a reason to benefit you because you weren't supposed to go
Mm,
down that path? And then the practical side of, now that the money is flowing in, what do we do with that money?
yeah.
Where do we put it? How do we invest it? How do we optimize it? And the
Yeah.
more you have that, the more you're going to trust yourself with the money and trust that money is going to continue to come into your world.
Yeah.
So usually that's the missing piece with the secret is people have this influx of money or prizes in,
Yeah.
but they don't trust themselves with it. So they
Right.
spend it. How many times do you lottery winners? They're in bankruptcy, even professional athletes,
Yeah.
celebrities, movie stars, and the money's gone. Well,
Yeah.
they're missing that practical side. They can trust themselves with the money that it's always going to be there. It can feel safe and they can receive more
Yeah.
too.
Not
So that's really what Money Queen goes into. It's 10 moves. It's a step-by-step manual to reprogram your mind it starts with a quote about how in order to elevate our wealth, we have to elevate the quality of our thoughts.
Love that.
So that's
so
what the book
important.
goes into, is
Yeah.
elevating your thoughts, your mindsets, your beliefs, your worthiness. I call it a worthiness muscle, right? We need to flex it
Ooh,
and
yeah.
strengthen it because somebody told you way back when you're 5, 7 years old that we don't have enough money for that. And you took that as, well, there's not enough money for me. Or
Yeah.
that, money doesn't grow on trees, or we don't have enough, you're not worthy. And
Can't
you took
say
it
those
as, I'm
things.
not enough, I'm not worthy. And we need
Yeah.
to fix that.
Yeah. I love it. And I love what you say here. Knowing that you can shift from scarcity mode to abundance mode instantly. And I love it. So, if you're listening, get a copy. We have a link down here in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click down here. If you're listening, you can get in the show notes. Jessica's giving you a link to a free audio copy on her website. So go ahead and get that. I love audiobooks. So that's my preferred. I'm going on a trip tomorrow, so I'm going to listen to now that I know that men are allowed to listen to it too. Jessica, I'm gonna
More than welcome into our lives. Yes. But there are meditations in there as well.
Yeah.
And there's some book bonuses too from the journal works, the meditations that I use, our advisors use, our clients use.
Yeah.
And coming off of one of the hardest years in the markets and talking with the numerous other advisors, our clients felt so grounded and safe because of this element that we bring to the table, that it was different conversations we were having. It was a constant reminders of there is something bigger at play here. I trust that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that was a huge game changer for us and our clients, and feeling like we had a really secure, steady ship.
It's so important. And we don't have a lot of financial advisors on a show that revolves a lot of around financial issues. And one of the reasons is because, I learned this even when I was getting my MBAs in portfolio management. So I was like in the financial industry when I was learning about this, but it seems so broken to me. And when you think about the traditional financial planning model, it's, hey, I'm going to save enough to get to the point where I can hopefully outlive my money. Or hopefully not outlive my money. And it's like this inherent, I think if we stop and step back and say, wait a minute, like that is not an abundance.
No, it's the opposite.
A frame for abundance. It's the opposite. And it is baked. I don't think a lot of people realize that it is literally baked into the very bedrock, the foundations of the assumptions that they build their financial plan on. And that's why I think it's so important, Jessica, to start, like you said, reset your mental framework and realize that when you're making these moves for money, you're planning for abundance in the future, not just only for yourself, but your family and generations to come. Yes,
that's a great point, Chris. You're right. I think our industry it's built on fear, right? The regulators put it on the firms put it on the advisors. We project it onto our clients. Work with me or you're going to run out of money. And that's not helping anybody. People are more terrified with the markets. They're not trusting anyone. And we need to change that and build something stronger.
Yeah.
Well, because it can be amazing work.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we love what you and your firm are doing. I'd love for you to kind of recap how people can get in touch with you. I know it's easy, jessicaweaver.com. Is that the best place for people to learn more?
Yes, jessicaweaver.com. You'll have my 3 books, including Confessions of a Money Queen. You got the link for the audio book of Confessions of a Money Queen. Our blog's there, Money Meditations. There's a ton of content there. And then we have Women Behind the Millions podcast, which just launched on Apple. We have it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or follow us on Instagram at PinkFixMyMoney. My whole world's pink,
Fix
Chris.
My Money.
Pink Fix My Money. Yes.
Beautiful.
We want everybody to have a dose of pink every day. They're Pink Fix.
I got a lot of pink up on my screen right now. So I got your book over here. I got your website. Yeah. So it's awesome. Well, Jessica, it's been a real pleasure. I love all the things that you've talked about here. Thank you so much for sharing these with our audience.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook,
and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.